He didn't even look at me. Not once. We walked into the ballroom together, arm in arm, technically, but his hand slid away from mine the moment the first flashbulb popped. Like I was just some accessory that clashed with his polished, curated image. I smiled for the cameras anyway. My smile felt brittle. Forced. Familiar. I spent 2 hours getting ready. Wearing the red dress he once said made me unforgettable. It had been collecting dust in the back of my closet, just like every part of me he used to love. I curled my hair the way he liked, soft waves, side-parted, but the second we stepped onto the marble floor, I became invisible. He was magnetic. Laughing too loudly. Toasting with men in tailored suits and young women in backless dresses. He placed a hand on one girl's shoulder, light, casual, thoughtless. But I saw the way she leaned in. I saw how his eyes sparkled when she giggled. And he didn't even see me watching. I stood by the bar, staring into a glass of champagne I didn't want. My reflection warped in the bubbles, and I thought, maybe I was never really enough for him. Maybe I was just the right person at the right time. The wife-shaped placeholder. Dance with me. The voice startled me. I turned. It was Liam. Evan's best friend. Sharp suit, knowing eyes. He wasn't smiling, not exactly, but there was something in his gaze I hadn't seen in years. Recognition. What? I asked, half laughing, confused. Dance with me, he said again. You shouldn't be standing here like this. I hesitated. I looked across the room. Evan hadn't noticed. Of course he hadn't. I took Liam's hand. The music changed. Slow, swaying. As he led me onto the dance floor, I felt eyes turning, murmurs blooming behind lipstick-stained glasses. I kept waiting for Evan to look. He never did. But Liam did, steady, real. And in that moment, wrapped in someone else's hands, I realized how profoundly I had disappeared inside my own marriage. And how far I might have to go to be seen again. Sometimes I wonder when I stopped being a person in Evan's life and started becoming background noise. A well-dressed shadow. A placeholder in photographs. I used to be the storm. The sharp-tongued, flame-eyed girl who challenged him in debate clubs, who grilled him in that feature article I wrote back in my journalism days, the one that first brought us together. Back then, he said I made him feel alive. Now, I don't even make him flinch. My name's Isla Mercer. 34. Technically unemployed, but not for lack of skill. I walked away from a career I loved to support a man who made me believe we were building something together. Turns out, he just needed scaffolding. A silent partner. A doll with a diploma. Evan Mercer, my husband, is the kind of man who knows how to fill a room. He doesn't walk in. He arrives. Everyone gravitates toward his orbit, seduced by the charisma, the perfectly timed wit, the humble brag about his latest acquisition. To the outside world, he's the golden boy. To me, he's a slow, suffocating vacuum, one that took my love, my time, my voice, and gave nothing back. We used to be in love, I swear. Real love, the kind where your whole body leans in when they speak, where late-night ramen feels like a date, and every look means something. But somewhere between Series C funding rounds and curated vacation posts, I became more valuable as an accessory than as a woman. He doesn't hit. He doesn't yell. No one sees bruises because there are none to see. Just the quiet sting of being dismissed mid-sentence, of his attention shifting to his phone when I speak, of his eyes lighting up for strangers but dimming whenever they land on me. And then there's Liam. Liam Hayes is Evan's best friend. Or was, once. They built their first app together out of a dorm room and split equity like brothers. But a few years ago, something cracked between them. Evan never gave details, just said Liam had different priorities. That was Evan's polite way of saying Liam had too much integrity to play in his sandbox. Liam didn't disappear, though. He stuck around, showed up at events, always on the periphery, present but not intrusive. And where Evan drowned rooms in noise, Liam observed in silence. I noticed that. I noticed him. He was the first to ask how I was doing, not the empty kind of asking, not the "you good," tossed out like a formality. He asked like he actually wanted to know. One night, after Evan embarrassed me at a fundraiser, something about my dress being a bit ambitious for someone not working, I fled to the balcony. And Liam found me there, no questions, no platitudes, just his coat over my shoulders and a long, grounding silence. I didn't fall for him at that moment. I didn't fall at all. But I remembered it. I remembered being seen. And when everything shattered, when Evan's betrayal surfaced not as one explosive affair, but as years of erasure, of calculated neglect. It was Liam I called. I don't know why. Maybe I knew he wouldn't say, "I told you so." Maybe I needed to speak to someone who remembered the version of me that existed before Evan edited me into oblivion. And Liam listened. Not like a savior, not like a man eager to swoop in, but like someone who understood the terrain of heartbreak and rage. I never wanted to be a woman who plotted revenge. But when silence is your prison for too long, anger starts to look a lot like freedom. So here we are. Me, the discarded wife who gave too much. Evan, the golden god with a cracking facade. And Liam, the man who could have walked away but didn't. People say there are 3 sides to every story, his, hers, and the truth. But let me tell you mine. I was the quiet one. The obedient wife. The woman who smiled through social events, played hostess, dimmed herself to let him shine. But that version of me? She's gone now. What's left is someone far more dangerous. And Evan Mercer is about to find out exactly what happens when the woman he forgot decides to remember who the hell she is. I met Evan when I was still someone. Still Isla Renner, independent, employed, caffeinated and late for everything, including the interview that changed my life. He was already polished, the founder of a disruptive tech firm, media darling, dangerously articulate. I was writing a feature for Wired Women in Tech and honestly, I didn't expect much. Another overconfident CEO, I thought. Another man who'd explain things I already knew. But Evan surprised me. He wasn't just intelligent, he was magnetic. Funny without trying to be. Restless in the way brilliant people are, as if his mind was sprinting 10 steps ahead. He challenged my questions, teased my assumptions. And when the interview ended, he asked if I wanted to grab a drink, off the record, if you're not busy being impressive elsewhere. We fell in love like it was some kind of chemical accident. Fast. Messy. Unavoidable. He said I made him feel seen. Said I wasn't intimidated by his world. I wasn't, not then. I'd grown up with nothing, paid for college with night shifts and scholarships. I wasn't scared of ambition. But Evan made me feel like we were climbing together. Like I wasn't behind him, but beside him. When he proposed, he didn't ask. He told me. I can't do this without you, Isla. Marry me. And I did. For a while, we were electric. We stayed up until 3 a.m. arguing over product pitches, strategizing investor decks, making love like the world would stop if we didn't. I believed we were a team. He called me his secret weapon. But slowly, the current changed. It began with small things. He'd gently suggest I wear something a little more polished to board events. Said it would help the image. I agreed. I wanted us to shine. Then came the resignations, first from freelance gigs, then full-time offers. He said he missed me. That he needed me home more. That he was protecting me from the stress. It sounded like love. It felt like devotion. But I didn't notice when I stopped writing entirely. When my world shrank to revolve around his calendar, his moods, his pressures. I thought I was being supportive. That this was what commitment looked like. But the truth is, I was folding myself down into a version he could manage. He never shouted. He never struck. His power was subtler than that, like gravity. You just found yourself bending, until you forgot what standing tall felt like. And Liam, well, Liam was always there. Evan's best friend. Co-founder turned silent partner. He was the kind of man who moved through rooms without demanding them, the opposite of Evan. He watched more than he spoke. When he did speak, it was deliberate. Meaningful. At first, I thought Liam didn't like me. But over time, I realized he just saw through everything. He never flirted. Never overstepped. But he noticed things. Like the time Evan cut me off mid-sentence at a dinner party, and Liam casually turned to me after and said, "I was actually really interested in what you were saying, Isla. Please, continue." No one had said that to me in months. One night, Evan left me stranded at a charity gala, furious I had spoken too openly about a political issue. I fled to the balcony, humiliated, shaking. It was Liam who found me. He didn't say, "Are you okay?" He just slipped off his coat, wrapped it around my shoulders, and stood beside me in silence. And I hated how comforted I felt. I wasn't in love with Liam, not then. But in that moment, I remembered what it felt like to be protected instead of managed. Still, I stayed. I told myself Evan was just stressed. That every power couple hit rough patches. That if I just gave a little more, loved a little harder, we'd find our way back. I kept convincing myself until the night I saw Evan's hand on another woman's back. In a photo he wasn't meant to be in, on a trip I wasn't allowed to attend, wearing the tie I gave him on our anniversary. That was when love stopped being a shield and became a wound. And I started remembering who the hell I used to be. I used to think the cruelest betrayal came with lipstick on a collar or a stranger's perfume in your sheets. But no, it's the kind that's slow. Silent. The kind that doesn't knock you over like a storm, but seeps in like mold behind your walls. You don't see it until everything's rotten. That was Evan. For months, he had been slipping away. Not in some dramatic, door-slamming kind of way. He just disappeared in place. His eyes stopped landing on me. His hand stopped reaching for mine. His voice became all clipped business, even when we were alone. But it wasn't until Barcelona that I knew for sure. It was supposed to be an investor summit. Just the big guns, he said. It'll be boring, nothing you'd want to sit through. All golf and backroom deals. I offered to come along, to spend the week exploring the city while he worked. His face tensed, just for a second. That was the first crack. Better to sit this one out, he said. Optics. You know how this world is. So I stayed. I tried not to feel like a discarded scarf in the back of the closet. I told myself it was just business. I was drinking red wine on our balcony the night I found the photo. It was an accident, really. I wasn't looking for it. I didn't snoop. I was just scrolling through reels when I saw her, the new assistant, Natalie. Young, polished, always too eager to laugh at Evan's bland jokes. She had posted a group dinner picture. I almost kept scrolling. But then came the second post. A carousel. Slide 1, the view from their hotel rooftop. Slide 2, a low-lit bar with flickering candles and 2 drinks. Slide 3, Evan. My husband. Wearing the navy tie I gave him for our anniversary, the one he said he must have left in the dry cleaner's bag. His hand resting lightly on the small of her back. The caption? Unforgettable night with the boss briefcase wineglass #Barcelona nights #justice. Just us. I didn't feel rage, not at first. I felt numb. Like someone had pulled the plug from the back of my neck and drained everything out of me. I stared at the screen so long my phone timed out. He wore the tie. For her. Not for me. I had begged him to wear it to our anniversary dinner 2 months ago. He didn't even bother to lie convincingly, just said he lost it. But there it was. Center frame. In a photo posted by someone too young to understand discretion, too proud to hide what she thought she'd stolen. I messaged him right then. No punctuation. Just, "You wore the navy tie?" He replied a full hour later. "It's not what you think. Stop being dramatic." No apology. No denial. Just a cold, calculated dismissal. As if I had caught him stealing pens from the office, not making a mockery of our marriage. I waited for him to come home. Maybe to lie. Maybe to confess. Maybe to beg. Instead, he walked in 3 days later like nothing had happened. Dropped his luggage, gave me a quick nod, and asked what was for dinner. What was for dinner? I followed him into the kitchen. My voice cracked on the way out. "You slept with her." He turned, still calm, like he was handling a client complaint. "I didn't sleep with anyone. Don't put words in my mouth." She posted the photo, Evan. Photos don't prove anything. And besides, what if I did? What would change? There it was. What would change? He didn't even have the decency to deny it properly. He just minimized it. Shrunk it down. As if my heartbreak was just another inconvenience he could talk his way out of. "You're not even sorry," I whispered. "For what?" "For being human," he scoffed. "You're not exactly easy to live with, Isla. You're emotional. You pick at everything. You always need something." I felt the air leave my chest. That was the real betrayal. Not Natalie. Not Barcelona. This reduction of everything I gave him to a list of flaws. "You think I'm a burden," I said, barely able to get the words out. "I think you don't understand how exhausting it is to keep pretending this marriage is working." He left the room after that. Just like that. No fight. No final blow. He just walked away like a man closing a browser tab. And I stood there, arms at my sides, in the house I'd helped him build, in the marriage I had nurtured with every scrap of myself. That night, I didn't cry. Instead, I sat in our bedroom, surrounded by the echoes of a life he had already left behind, and opened a blank document on my laptop. I started typing, not a diary, not a letter, but an inventory. Of his habits. His patterns. The people he trusted. The timelines. Because if he thought I was just going to fade into the wallpaper he no longer saw. He had forgotten who I was. I was a writer once. And I was about to rewrite this story. On my terms. I stopped breathing the moment he looked me in the eye and said it meant nothing. I don't know why that was the line, not the photo, not the dress she wore, not even the way his hand held her so casually in that image. But that line, flat, cold, and disgustingly calm, was what cracked something deep inside me. It meant nothing. Like I was supposed to nod and move on. Like years of loyalty could be overwritten with 3 syllables of detachment. After that, I didn't cry. I didn't scream, or throw anything, or fall to the floor like the women in those dramas Evan thinks are beneath him. No, I just stopped. The days melted into one another. I stopped going out. I stopped brushing my hair some mornings. I stopped answering texts. I remember standing in the kitchen once, kettle whistling, my hand frozen just inches away from the handle. And I remember thinking, what's the point of hot tea if you're already dead inside? Evan barely noticed. Or maybe he noticed and didn't care. He carried on with his polished routines. Early meetings, curated Instagram posts, occasional pity kisses on the forehead like I was a dying relative instead of his wife. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was the vacuum that followed. The silence. The way the air between us got heavier, like we were both pretending the other wasn't decomposing. I stayed in that house because I didn't know where else to go. My name was on nothing. My money was in accounts he managed. And the one time I mentioned counseling, he scoffed. Said therapy was for emotional parasites who need permission to cry. I realized then, he saw me as weak. And for a moment, I agreed with him. One night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, wearing the black slip dress he used to love. I stared at myself, at the ghost I had become. My skin was dull, my eyes tired, my spirit gone. I touched my own cheek and felt nothing. Not even sadness. Just numbness. Then the doorbell rang. Liam. I didn't ask him to come. I hadn't spoken to him since the party. But he stood there, holding a small paper bag, food from the Thai place I loved. He didn't speak. Just looked at me with this quiet devastation in his eyes, like he was mourning someone who hadn't died yet. Eat, he said gently. I tried to smile. It cracked. Why are you here? Because I know what Evan is. And I know what you were before him. That sentence pulled me back to life. He remembered me. The real me. The woman who asked difficult questions in interviews, who drank espresso at midnight and laughed too loudly at her own bad jokes. Someone saw her. That night, I ate quietly while he sat beside me. No judgments. No pity. And when he left, I opened my laptop for the first time in weeks. I stared at a blank document. Then typed 2 words. He forgot. And just like that, I started to remember who I used to be, and what he had taken. That was the night I stopped grieving. And started planning. I didn't scream when I found out. Didn't smash anything. Didn't sob into wine or call my mother or write a long, furious post for the world to see. No, I did something much more dangerous. I still went. Still enough to see clearly. The man I had loved, blindly, completely, idiotically, had tossed me aside like last season's accessory. All that time I thought I was fighting for our marriage. In reality, I was clinging to the ghost of someone who had disappeared a long time ago. The betrayal wasn't just the woman in Barcelona. It was every moment he'd chosen silence over intimacy, strangers over me, ego over truth. So I decided, he would lose everything he thought untouchable. But it wouldn't be messy. No scandals, no screaming. Just precision. Silence. Stillness. The same way he'd hurt me. I reached out to the only person I knew could help. Liam. He answered on the second ring. His voice was gentle, but alert, like he already knew something was wrong. I need to talk, I said. He didn't hesitate. Where? We met at an art gallery. One of those minimalist spaces where everything is white, quiet, and no one asks questions. I told him everything. About Evan's betrayal. The lies. The assistant. How small I'd become in my own life. Liam didn't interrupt. He just listened, jaw tight, eyes colder than I'd ever seen them. Finally, he said, "Tell me what you want." "I want to burn him down," I whispered. "Not with fire. With truth." Liam nodded once. No warnings. No moral compass speech. Just loyalty. He still had shares in Evan's company, founder shares with access privileges. He'd never sold them out of principle, even after walking away. Now, they gave us just enough leverage to make noise in the right rooms. Over the next few weeks, we worked in quiet coordination. We met in cafes out of town, used burner phones, and communicated in code. It felt ridiculous at first, like something out of a spy movie. But the more I uncovered, the more I realized how dirty Evan's hands were. How carefully he had curated the image of a visionary while gutting his employees, manipulating his board, and paying interns less than minimum wage under equity-based programs. I had receipts, emails, contracts I'd once helped him draft when I thought I was being a good wife. Now, I compiled them like weapons. And then came the story. I started a blog under a pseudonym, Mrs. Erased. A woman whose husband stole her voice one silence at a time. No names. No cities. Just shadows and details. It spread like wildfire among the wives of men just like Evan. I didn't need to say his name. Everyone already knew. Meanwhile, Liam reconnected with a few disgruntled investors. He slipped them select truths, questions about where the company's money had gone, why Evan's assistant had her own travel budget, why key female execs had quietly resigned. But revenge isn't only about destruction. It's about reclaiming the self you buried to make someone else feel big. So I took a small part of the settlement money Evan had gifted me years ago and bought the apartment next to ours, under my maiden name. Same layout. Same view. Same bones. And I gutted it. No photos. No warmth. No sound. Just one framed picture on the mantel, Evan, alone at one of his parties, drink in hand, smiling at no one. The final trap was set, a carefully worded invitation, pretending to rekindle what we had lost. I knew he would come. Men like Evan always come when they think they've won. And I'd be waiting. I didn't wear red. Too obvious. Too symbolic. I wore silver, cold, reflective, like a blade glinting in soft light. My dress shimmered as I moved through the apartment, every step echoing against the bare walls. There was no furniture. No decor. Just silence and space, like the emotional void Evan left me in for years. Tonight was about symmetry. I stood by the window, watching the skyline flicker while the playlist cycled through soft jazz, his favorite. My heart wasn't racing. It was steady. Focused. I had rehearsed this 1,000 times in my mind. But now that it was real, I felt strangely detached. Like I was watching a version of myself perform the final act in a play I had written while crying on the bathroom floor. Then, the front door clicked. He stepped inside casually, as if this were his stage, his scene. Still cocky. Still unaware. Isla, he called, following the scent of sandalwood I knew would disarm him. You changed the place? I didn't answer. Let the anticipation cook. He followed the wine trail I'd left, every glass strategically placed to guide him through the emptiness. Where is everyone? He murmured, now visibly confused. The room was too quiet. Too curated. He turned, and saw me standing at the center of the room. There was a flicker of something on his face. No remorse. Just confusion. Maybe even an annoyance. I thought we were meeting to talk, he said, his eyes scanning the space. Where's the furniture? What is this? I smiled, but it wasn't warm. This, I said slowly, is what it felt like being married to you. He blinked. Empty. Devoid. Performative, I continued. A place that looked perfect from the outside, but inside, nothing. No warmth. No love. Just echoes. He scoffed. You're being dramatic. Am I? I took a remote from the counter and pressed play. A projector descended from the ceiling and bathed the white wall in sharp, silent light. The footage began. Evan at a hotel bar, touching the assistant's lower back. Evan on a balcony, whispering something into her ear. Then another clip, her laughing drunkenly at a party, talking to friends. He told me his wife is too sensitive. That I'm more fun. I think he's serious about leaving her eventually. Evan's face paled. Where did you get this? He snapped. I tilted my head. You forget, Evan, I was a journalist before I was your prop. I still know how to uncover truths. Isla, this is slander. No. This is the truth. Documented. Edited for your convenience. Another clip, Evan at a board meeting, belittling a junior manager, one of several employees who'd left due to hostile workplace conditions. Then a leaked email thread, bragging about manipulating investor expectations. It was a curated museum of the man he truly was, collected piece by someone he assumed was too broken to notice. He lunged toward the projector. I stepped between them. "Don't," I warned. "Or the live stream backup goes live." He froze. "Live stream?" I didn't answer. Let him stew in the not knowing. "Why?" he whispered. "Why are you doing this?" My voice cracked, just slightly. "Because I begged you to see me. To hear me. To fight for us. And you didn't even bother looking up from your phone." He looked at me now. Really looked. But it was too late. "You made me invisible," I continued. "So now I've made you transparent." He slumped against the wall. His confidence drained. His mouth moved, but no words came out. For once, Evan had no script. I stepped closer and handed him a manila envelope. "In here are transcripts, evidence, and signed testimonials. By morning, it will reach the press, your investors, and the board of your company." He reached for it. I pulled it back. "Unless," I said, my voice calm, "you resign tonight, for personal reasons, and publicly announce that Liam Hayes will take your place as CEO." His nostrils flared. "You're siding with him now?" I smiled faintly. "No. I'm siding with the woman I used to be before you erased her." The silence that followed was thick. Not angry. Not tense. Just final. "I never thought you'd be capable of this," he muttered. "Neither did I admitted. And that was the most tragic part. I had once shrunk myself so small to fit inside his shadow that I forgot I had my own light." I turned toward the exit. My heels clicked across the marble like a gavel. "Oh," I added, glancing over my shoulder, "the apartment? It's not yours. I bought it. Right next to the penthouse. Mirror layout. Just emptier. Fitting, don't you think?" His mouth opened. But I was already gone. Downstairs, Liam waited at the curb. He didn't ask what happened. He just opened the car door, like always, quiet, steady, respectful. As we drove away, I looked up at the apartment that once felt like a prison. And I exhaled. I wasn't just getting even. I was getting free. I didn't destroy him. I let him destroy himself. All I did was shine a light on what was already rotting beneath the surface, his arrogance, his deceit, his hollow need to be admired by everyone except the woman who loved him. The night I walked out of that mirrored apartment, I felt no victory, only silence. Not the cold silence of being ignored, but the kind that follows a storm when every loose branch has fallen, and you finally hear yourself breathe again. He tried to call me. Texted. Even sent flowers? 12 white lilies and a note that said, "You made your point. Come home." As if I'd simply been throwing a tantrum. As if years of being invisible could be erased by apology-shaped arrogance. I didn't answer. The world watched Evan fall. Slowly, then all at once. The leaked clips went viral in boardrooms and whisper networks. Investors withdrew. The merger collapsed. News outlets ran sanitized headlines about ethical lapses and internal restructuring, but the truth was simpler. No one believed in the illusion anymore. He wasn't feared. He was pitied. I never showed my face publicly. I didn't have to. The story told itself. An anonymous woman's emotional truth laid bare on a private blog became the scream others had been choking on. I sold the penthouse and bought a quiet apartment overlooking the park. No marble, no glass walls, just light, plants, and silence I chose. I started a podcast. Just my voice, raw and steady, interviewing women who'd been erased by the men they once supported. I never used my real name, but every episode ended the same way. If you've ever felt like a ghost in your own life, know this: I see you. I was once silent too. As for Liam, he never made promises. Never rushed me. He didn't come to save me. He stood beside me while I saved myself. One evening, months later, he showed up at my door. No suit. No agenda. Just holding a record player and an old vinyl of Ella Fitzgerald. "Come dance with me," he said. No crowd. No cameras. Just this song and your bare feet on the floor. I hesitated. Not because I didn't want to, but because I wasn't used to being asked, gently. And then I smiled. A real one. The kind that doesn't come from vengeance, but from finally being free. I stepped into his arms. Let my cheek rest against his chest. The music crackled between us. "Just promise me one thing," I whispered. "Anything," he said. "Don't ever make me invisible again." His answer was simple. Honest. I couldn't if I tried. And in that quiet room, where no one was watching, I let myself be held. Not because I needed someone to fix me, but because I had finally fixed myself. And this was the reward. Not revenge. But resurrection.